Good afternoon. This is the meeting of the Hingham Municipal Lighting Board, December 21st, 2022 at 3 p.m. This meeting is being offered remotely as an alternate means of public access pursuant to Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022 and all other applicable laws temporarily amending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You're hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Hingham in accordance with the open meeting law. If any participant wishes to record this meeting, please notify the chair at the start of the meeting in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, so that the chair may inform all other participants of said recording. So is there anybody else here who would like to record other than the light plant? Probably not. Okay, then. So we'll just head right to our first topic of discussion, excuse me, which is to go through the list of questions that need resolving on the green tariff policy that Brianna put together for us. So does everybody have that document before you? If not, I can put it up on screen. Tyler, have you got this list of questions that Brianna sent out?
I think Brianna was going to share that.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm going to suggest that there's like three. Well, actually, no. First, before we do that, let me ask about time constraints because it is the middle of the day. Does anybody have time constraints that we need to know about?
I mean, I think I leave at 4, but I don't like if I'm not done at 4. I don't know.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
Well, let's see if we can get this done in an hour anyway. Tops. Okay. So there's 3 sections. One is on customer impacts, one is implementation process and next steps, and one is program structure and spending. I think we should look at customer impacts, then program structure and spending, and then implementation process, just kind of in that order, if that's okay. So you want to, okay, great. All right. So how are bills going to change and potentially negatively impact low-income customers and or renters? The question seemed a little vague to me. How are bills going to change? I mean, did you mean anything more specific than just people's bills will go up if they don't opt out?
I think that was pretty much it.
And we just want to look at that. Yeah. On the low income customers and or renters, let me ask the board, we're going to be doing this rate study, and I have one of the things I would like to look at is a low income rate, which I know other municipal light plants have. I'm not sure how it works, but I don't know if there's any interest in the board in looking at that when we get our rate study back.
No, I'm happy to look at that. And
yeah, I mean, it seems to me that there's a couple of cutoffs that are available through Massachusetts state help that's out there, and there are cutoffs where some people don't quite qualify, but in reality probably should. So I think we need to understand what's available and then try and help bump it up if possible.
Yeah, I think what most municipalities do is for the low income rate, if people qualify for state, something through the state, then they put on the like a low income rate, but you have to qualify through the state is typically how it is, because otherwise we'd have to try to qualify people.
Right.
Well, I just wanted to put that on the agenda for during our rate study discussion if other people are interested in that. So I feel like that's how we would address any negative income. I mean, the other aspect of how you would address that is just making sure that you've made a really significant outreach program, so people understand the program and understand that they can opt out. That's the other piece of that from my point of view. Brianna, will you be taking notes on this? Because we don't have a minute taker today.
No, we do. Christine is gonna take the notes for, and do the minutes for the meeting.
Okay, great. That's super. Then
Is
we don't
she-
have to do that ourselves.
I saw her in the meeting, I think, is she in it now? I think she might have left
So
the,
she'll have the
She can always do it
recording
later.
anyway.
okay,
So, yeah.
So if is there anything else on this first question about low-income customers or renters that we should discuss?
I mean, perhaps we could look at that in more detail if those people are heating primarily with heat pumps and therefore have an increased electrical load over what would be normal and customary as sort of baseline. And that might induce people to go the heat pump route.
That is a really interesting thought that I had never thought of. Suppose if someone had whole house heat pumps and no other source of heat, that their rate might be 2% as opposed to 4% or something like that. I don't know, we could look at the impacts of that, but it's an interesting idea.
so we do have the general service heating rate. I'm not quite sure how it works. Is
Yeah,
that something where
That rate was put together years ago for people who had resistive heating.
I
So,
did not know we had such a rate.
Yeah, and it's a different meter.
Different meter.
and is it,
Yeah, no, that's not a thing of the hot water heaters. That's a different meter. But the electric heat rate was put together years ago for resistive heating.
Mhm.
is
So
that,
that's going to come up in the rate study too, right?
I would imagine that would come up, yeah.
does someone have to specifically have resistive heating, or is it anybody that disconnects from fossil fuels completely and is all electric in their home?
Again, that rate was set up for people who had resistive heating, so they were using much more than you would normally use, especially today where the heat pumps are efficient.
Do we know how widespread that customer base is?
I think it's fairly small right now at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people will have gone away from pure resistive heat if they can.
Well, so I think that's three ways that we could address this: is a low income rate, a different rate for all electric heating customers, and then taking a look at the existing electric heating rate and see if that makes sense, or if we want to fiddle with that when the rate study comes around. Is that a good sum up of our
Yep.
ideas? Okay. So moving on, the next question: should renters or certain high turnover properties be excluded from the rate? You want to, is there any background or thinking behind this question that we should consider, Brianna?
There were just concerns about some of the properties in Hingham that have high turnover because they're consistently have new residents moving in. The meters are constantly getting swapped, I guess, or not swapped, but the start and stop service is consistently happening for those buildings. I don't know what the process would be on our end to take people off of the rate and put them back on to inform them consistently about it. I don't know if like certain properties like that would need to be excluded. That was something that came up in our conversations with
I think the ladies up front have a concern that, depending on how this is done, it could introduce a lot of work for them as far as putting people on, taking them off. And I think a lot of that is going to depend on how this is set up. And talking to Joan, it sounds like she's thinking it would be set up almost like a tax, that it would go on everyone, and then, including these properties, right? Is when you sign up for service that you would be put on this unless you opted out. And we would, we would let them know when they sign up for service that they're on it, and there is, the if they want to opt out, they can opt out. So I don't know that that's really going to be an issue.
I mean, we have a note section on the electric bill that for new customers, it could be inserted to show them that they are on it and
Yeah.
explain it and let them know that they could opt out if they wanted to, but the default would be that they're opted in when they start a new account.
Yeah, and I think everyone's got to come to the office to start service, or well, actually they don't. They can do that online, but we could have something online that makes them aware of it anyway.
Mhm.
Yeah, probably they will have to give you their email address if they're signing up online. And then somehow, if you send them an email saying, hey, your electric service is up, then you could send along the notification. Sorry about the destruction.
I think also new accounts often have to establish some sort of a credit
Yeah,
if they don't have a prior record. So people moving into town and renting would probably go through a slightly different process.
yeah.
I'm sorry, say that again. I couldn't hear you because of the saw outside my window.
I think new customers, particularly renters who move into town, have to establish a deposit and a credit at
Mhm.
HMLP, particularly if they've not had a previous account. So there's
Mhm.
additional paperwork and explanation that goes out for new customers often
Mhm.
that could be incorporated. And
Is that for anybody or just renters?
Just
I
renters.
think for
No.
anybody. No.
No, so
just
renters have
renters,
to, new customers have to, if you don't have an account, a prior account, then you do have to establish, come in and give us some information to establish an account. But renters also have to put a deposit on the account,
Right.
where if you're a homeowner, obviously we can put a lien on the property if you don't pay.
Okay. So it's just for renters. Yeah.
Just
Okay.
renters, yep.
Yeah, I think it was on the volume of with the renters, right, with the amount of volume, with the turnovers, and
Turnover,
also they may not take advantage of any of the rebate programs that aren't, because they're not homeowners, right? So I think that's where that thought was coming from. So why don't we just exclude them from the rate? I think that was where that comment came from.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you also compare what the investor-owned utilities do, those charges are explicit, item 1, item 2, item 3, etc., for what that money is being allocated to.
Yeah,
It's pretty clear on those bills that what program it's subsidizing and paying for with Mass Save.
So I'm sorry, Mark, why did you suggest excluding them from the rate? I missed that part.
No, I think the thought when the customer service was talking about this, that due to the high turnover, that they'd be putting on and off on this, so someone opts out, and now they move out, someone else, now they're automatically in. And I think with a lot of the renters, where they may not take advantage of the rebates because they don't own the building, they're not going to get the heat pump, they're not going to do the insulation. So would it be best that we just exclude them from it, because they really aren't going to be able to take advantage of some of the rebates because they are renters? They may take advantage of a low income rate if they qualify, right? Which is now, we never really thought about that. But I'm just thinking that's where that comment came from, that due to the turnover, there's going to be a lot of off and on stuff that they'd have to recalculate and whatnot. But that's where that came from with my conversation with the lead out front.
Well, this fund is not intended just to support the rebates. It's also going to support the light plant in developing local distributed energy resources, which are going to benefit everybody. But
I understand.
I am concerned
that,
about creating work for the people who have to do it, though.
Yeah.
If somebody had taken themselves off the rate, when you're setting someone up for the same unit, would it solve the problem to just say everybody's on it to start out, and then they get notified if they can be taken off? I mean,
Yeah, I think that's the way we would do it, right? Everyone would be put on. And then we would just have to, when they're signing up for service, they would just we'd have to have some way of just notifying them that there is an opt-out program and what it's for. Just give them some information on what it is, and then let them make a decision on whether they want to stay in or get out.
I think customer service had also suggested we put something right on the stop service form. So when someone fills that out, it's like a checkbox, and they can choose on the form to opt out when their service is getting set up.
Yeah.
mhm. And that would be for everybody, right? Not
Yeah.
just renters.
Correct. Anyone's starting a service.
Okay, if there's sort of consensus around that idea on the board, then we could move on if nobody objects.
I mean, I think that makes it easier for people to opt out.
It does, but I feel like we should warn them. I feel like it's
Oh, I'm not saying that we shouldn't warn them.
it's an imperative.
Check boxes are easily checked.
Yeah. I mean, another thing you could do is, rather than have a checkbox, put something on there saying, we would have a system for how people would opt out if they are current customers. Somebody decides they need to lower their electric bill and they need to get out of that rate. We would have something set up presumably online where they could do that. So you could have somebody check the box that says, I'm aware that this particular rate is opt out and that I may choose not to participate. And if so, you got to go to this place on the web like everybody else and opt out. So
How does Wellesley do it?
That I don't know. We could check with them to see how they do it.
Yeah.
So that might
know
slightly
they-
discourage people from
Yeah, I know
opting
they
out.
talked about, getting calls from people looking to opt out.
I mean, I would say people can call or notify HMLP in writing. I mean, I would make it not as easy as it might be made if we were looking to sell it more.
The customer service department did note that this kind of a thing should definitely be in writing. Originally, we discussed whether, setting up a phone line people can call makes sense, or having people call just our general number, and then we, take note of their names and information. But they said, no, there really should be a form, which I agree with, so that there's a record of it. And it's not, oh, I talked to somebody and they got my name in. So maybe I like the idea of having a checkbox on the start service that says, are you aware that you have the ability to opt out by filling out this form? Are you aware of how to do it? And they check that they are aware, and that they know they need to fill out the opt-out form that we would have on our website.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And
And
I
I
know
think
there will,
that minimizes, people coming back and saying, well, I didn't know I was on this, and I want my money back, and it's 6 months or 8 months or.
so I'm also aware that there are people who will complain if you can only opt out via a physical letter, and there will people who will complain if you can only opt out online. So you could possibly have a PDF form that you can fill out online or print out. So that people have at least could you fill out a form, but it's either online or by mail, but make it possible to do it both ways, because I know there are people who will object either way.
Okay. We do that with most of our forms now, I believe, so we can set up the same thing for this.
Okay. Okay. If that is, if there's a consensus on that, we can go to the next one, which is, how will HMLP ensure that the program development process and opt-out process is open, accessible, and advertised to everyone? I might suggest that we move that question to implementation process and next steps. because that's kind of what it is. And move on to the next customer impact question. Does that make sense to people?
Mhm.
Sure.
Okay. Will the board review the timing of the program and the current status of the economy, other electric rates, et cetera? So this was that question that came up about, is this a good time to introduce such a program? What would be such a good time to introduce such a program? What should we consider when we're deciding when to start it? Any thoughts?
The lowest, rates of the year are typically in Q2 and Q4.
Yeah.
So those would be the optimal times from an optics perspective to start something like this.
Mhm. And I think we did discuss waiting to see the report on the rate structure to see how it fits in with everything else. I think
Yeah.
we talked about that, right?
We did.
Okay. So let's just say, how would it be if we agreed that we'll see if we can get all our questions answered and all our ducks in a row by Q2.
Mhm.
And if not, we'll shoot for Q4. Okay. What alternatives have been considered to implementing a rate that could reduce its impact on customers, such as grant writing?
I mean, we're always looking for grants for things, but I don't know.
Is there anything available to us as part of the IRA?
There probably will be.
Again, those grants are for, for solar, right? For things like that, projects that we would be doing, which would reduce the costs, but I think there would still be some cost to HMLP for the type of work that we're looking to do, right, with this money.
Maybe
I-
we consider setting the rate for this program each year based upon any other grant money that we might receive from other programs like the IRA.
We could do that, yeah. We could move in. Obviously, we can increase or reduce it. Again, I don't think we'd want to do it every, once a year would probably make sense rather than,
Okay. There really isn't anything that would reduce its impact on customers other than just not having such a tariff or having a smaller one rather than a bigger one.
yeah, I agree.
Regardless, we're going to be looking for the grants.
And a lot of those grants are going to be funneled through the state, I believe.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything that we do that we were planning on using this fund for that we might get grants for. And I think so the municipal solar group met, and one of the things we did was Ben Lee, the volunteer, has agreed to go out and look for grants that might be available for putting solar on municipal buildings. And if he found things like that, that's something that we had explicitly thought about using this fund for. So, but from my point of view, all that would mean is we could, build more faster. But I think the idea of at least putting on our board calendar a review a year later and making sure that we come back and review it a year later would be a prudent thing to do. People agree with that? Okay, so we'll plan to do that at the very least. What are all of the requirements that will be included or not included in the program? For example, the board has discussed not making rebates contingent on program participation. So, and then other requirements might be, whether or not a low income rate impacts this. You could imagine, here's a thought, you could imagine anybody who qualifies for the low income rate turning it into an opt-in program, That's a lot of work for the front office, though. that's a lot to keep track of, but if they're going to be addressing, okay, this person's going on the low income rate anyway. If they're communicating with the person, giving them an option to send in a letter to opt out, to opt in. I don't know. Just a thought.
Maybe we can also consider self-service options online.
Mhm. You mean for opting in if you're on a low income rate?
Yeah, that, or potentially for in or out.
Mhm. Yeah, I think we did consider that for opting out, and could do that for opting in as well. And we did discuss not making rebates contingent on program participation. And I remember having that conversation. I remember feeling myself that the people who will benefit the most from rebates are the people who might not feel like they have the money to pay this rate. And so I would not favor requiring people to be part of the program in order to get a rebate. But I don't know what other people are thinking about that.
Yeah,
I agree. The only instance I could think of would be some large multifamily rental unit, which
I would agree with that.
everyone opts out, but the building owner wants to upgrade the building using the program.
So everybody gets their own electric bill. But the building owner wants to upgrade, even though they don't pay the electric bill. But that would benefit the bill payers if he got or she got the rebate and did something energy efficiency or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't
fair.
know.
But it does lower the collective carbon footprint of the town of Hingham.
Does.
So an example of something that E&E has come to me and Brianna with is someone that they've been talking to. It's a condominium complex. And the condo association is looking for us to give them something to install card charges in the basement of the building for the owners. So in my opinion, right, something like that is, why would I give them more than I would give to Laura Burns, right?
Well, especially because there's a state program that will do that.
Yeah, so they're looking for
us.
more for infrastructure within the building. So they want us to contribute to them upgrading the infrastructure in the building to, to put car chargers in. And my opinion is that I shouldn't be giving them any more than I would give to any individual customer.
We don't do that for single family homes.
Right.
No.
And, what we could look at in those cases is if they needed to upgrade a transformer or something, that we could look to working with them to upgrade to the transformer. But anything beyond the meter, I don't think we should be offering any assistance with.
So far, we have taken it upon ourselves to upgrade transformers when the load in an area gets to the point that that's required.
Yeah.
So that we do that for everybody. Yeah, well, that makes sense to me.
I'll
But
also-
those type of upgrades would be behind the meter, right?
Correct. That,
Yeah.
Well, I know that.
Sorry,
Sorry.
Laura.
No, go ahead, Mike.
If I recall correctly, we'd previously discussed about the condominium example.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Individual grant that we could review and decide as a board the feasibility and how much we should support that project. I think that's That's what we'd previously discussed.
Yeah.
And I think that's not really relevant to what the example that Tom just gave, because we don't give rebates or help in general about, fixing the wiring in your house
Right.
behind the meter. But for the rebate programs that exist, we did say, and I think this would address the example that Tyler brought up, that it's
Yeah, exactly.
anything over 5 units. How we help becomes a conversation with the light plant, as opposed to an automatic arrangement based on our rebate structure. That's my recollection.
Yeah.
Do we have that right, Brianna?
Yep, I like the structure of having someone come to us with a project idea that even, something that's not feasible, like what Tom was talking about. And, the light board would not have that go forward because it doesn't make sense for us to be funding that kind of a project. But for someone to come to us and propose something that they believe fits within the parameters of this program and what this program funding can be used for to produce ratepayer benefits, I think if they can tie it to overall ratepayer benefits as well as specific ratepayers that may be paying into the program, then I think that's something the light board can review and determine, whether they want to provide the money for that or not. So I like that general structure of having people propose projects to the light board and say, this is what we want to do. This is the benefit that we can have for Hingham and all of its customers.
Yeah, I think that it facilitates us in a sort of coaching role and directing people to the programs or the tax incentives or the money that's available through federal tax credit to put an extra line in to increase your capacity for a charger or for a 200 amp service, so you can go with heat pumps or that type of stuff behind the meter. Even though we're not directly responsible for it, we can certainly point customers in the right direction.
Yeah, we need to expand our resource bank of what we can, point customers to and things. And we're doing the same thing looking into Mass Save now, because we want natural gas customers to have the same access to resources. And I'm glad to hear oil customers are having an easy time getting to our programs, but we need to make sure that everybody in Hingham can find what they need. So, wherever we can put those out for customers will help a lot. And it's money that we don't have to, give out.
And ideally, all of the access to all of those things would be up on Electrify Hingham. So no matter who the person is who's asking the question, you can point them to that website and they'll be able to figure out how to get to Mass Save or whatever, if that's what's appropriate for them.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the vision there. Okay, so is there anything we've not covered about this question? What are all the requirements that will be included or not included in the program that people can think of?
The only other thing I can think of is, rate classes. Are we going to include municipal rates? Are we going to include primary metered rates? I don't know if that's any place else in here.
Well,
so that would be Hingham Schools and Linden Ponds, for example.
Yeah.
Good questions.
I think that's a perfect segue into the next section anyways, talking about
Okay.
program structure and figuring out those details.
Okay, is that right? There it is. Which customers exactly should and should not be on the rate? That question is there. Yeah, okay. Okay, so let's go to program structure and spending. And what percentage will the opt-out fund charge be? For example, 4%. And so Brianna made this wonderful chart. If people, I don't know, if people have access to that, estimating the impact. So first of all, let me ask the question. I'm not sure I've ever really grappled with exactly what, if it's 4%, exactly 4% of what pieces of the bill is it 4% of?
Is it 4% of the kilowatt hours total for a month?
Does it include transmission and capacity
Yeah.
charges, you know?
Yeah.
So I think these numbers, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, these take into account the,
Residential, yeah, this is all residential.
and does it take into account the all-in cost of?
I
each-
believe that, so, you know, when I looked at the numbers, 7 million kilowatt hours a month, that's about what our residential usage is. Because we're split about 50-50 almost. I know we use, it's 14, when I looked at it, I believe it was 14 million kilowatt hours a month. So in total, so 775, 7,500,000 is, in my opinion, about the correct number for residential usage.
So this is just residential, and so if we included municipal and commercial rates, the amount generated might be almost twice what's on this sheet, right?
Again, it would depend on what it's based on. Are we basing it on the total bill?
Right, that's the question.
Yeah.
Is it power? Is it transmission?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't
I think
have,
the easiest thing is to base it on total bill. I'd have to have Joan weigh in on that, but I think that was her thought, is the easiest thing is to make this like a tax.
to whatever your total bill is, but before discount or after discount?
I
Tough
would say
one.
before discount, because we don't know who's gonna take the discount.
Uh-huh.
I had
Yeah, that's a good point.
Wesley's rate up earlier. I might have closed it. I have their rate structure. I think that they use, they use the customer charge, the base rate, the PPA, and the demand charge for customers that get a demand charge. So I don't know which things that does not include. I think that might be, it doesn't, is that everything? I think the base rate includes like distribution, transmission.
Yeah.
I can actually switch to that if that's helpful.
Here, they call the what is it, power cost adjustments, they call it the purchase power.
Yeah. So we call it PCA, they call it PPA.
So they do commercial as well,
Yeah,
so.
I think
So-
when we spoke to them, they did, commercial was in it, other than their larger customers who already have programs where they're buying, like Wellesley College and there were a few others that, they're buying recs to cover their usage already, and they're doing other things, so they weren't included in it, but all the other commercial customers were.
But those are actually one of, there is the idea of having a nonprofit, maybe taking nonprofits out of the mix. Blue Cross Blue Shield would be the big one, the South Shore Hospital facility. But I don't know that we need to do that, but.
Why would we want to take nonprofits out of the mix?
On the theory that they're nonprofits, but the residential customers are nonprofits as well.
Yeah, I think in Wellesley, it was more based on taking larger customers out that are already doing things to,
Yeah,
So.
and that was on a case-by-case basis.
yeah.
So we could allow large customers to make a case to us. Well, of course, Linden Ponds is a nonprofit, so that's where that would hurt. So should we make an arrangement where large customers can have a conversation with us. I worry a little bit about being able to approach something like that very consistently.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing with Linden Ponds, I guess, is they're a large customer, but I would imagine that in their monthly, whatever it is, their monthly rent or whatever, that electric fee is calculated into that somehow. So, if we did do the 4%, everyone in Linden Ponds would be paying that 4% at some point.
I think one of my goals is to see the electric bills being as simple as possible. And one of the things that's tabulated is the total kilowatt hours that somebody uses, particularly when you look at somebody who has solar. There ends up being an amount of kilowatt hours that is purchased from HMLP times the 4% should give you the fee for, and I'm not sure that I like the word tax if we can avoid that, but something that's very easy to figure out how it was calculated on a monthly basis.
Yeah,
My goal.
I think again, Joan's not here, she's on vacation this week, but I think her thought was the easiest way to do it is just 4% of whatever the bill is, and it's more like a tax on the bill.
I
So is
like
that
the
what we're-
idea of including the T&D and capacity charge too, because those are required to serve power of the at any location, not just the energy.
I'm not sure when you look at the pieces of the bill that there are any pieces of it that are more or less related to what it is that we're doing with this charge. I think they're all kind of equal in that regard. That's why I agree with you, Tyler, about including those pieces of it. The spreadsheet that you did, Brianna, does that reflect the whole bill, or is it done by kilowatt hours?
I believe it reflects the whole bill.
Okay.
I mean, it's what our IT department sent me, so I'm assuming it's the whole bill. Tom, does it look like the numbers that would be for a customer's entire bill, or does it look like
Well, again, when you and I looked at it, my only question was that the average usage was like 850 kilowatt hours, which seems, high typically they used to use 500 kilowatt hours as an average monthly usage. And here it's 856 kilowatt hours, I think, there in that column.
Yeah. And so that customer usage was, just so everyone knows, based off of, we took the total monthly consumption and we divided it by we divided the total number of customers by the total
Number of
monthly
meters.
consumption, or vice versa. Yeah. And we got the monthly consumption, and then the actual bill amounts here that we're using to generate total revenue, we multiplied that by about 19 cents, which would be our all-in rate. So like if rates go up, then these numbers would all change. But that is looking at what a total bill would cost rather than certain elements of it. Although I recently was calculating some bills, and I was seeing that it was coming out to about 23 cents. So maybe this doesn't include all of the charges anymore. We can switch this to be 23 cents and see how it improves things. But just so you know, this is based off of a 19-cent rate, and it is all in.
Yeah, so the all-in rate is hard to calculate because you have things that change every month, and your NIPA credit that's for the first 400 kilowatt hours, that type of thing. So I think if you use the 19 cents or 20 cents or 22 cents, whatever it's going to be, there's going to give you your best estimate of what your revenue is going to be.
So I'm looking at the spreadsheet. I'm trying to look at the names of the columns. So got the number of customers, then average Customer monthly consumption, that's kilowatt hours.
Yep,
Average customer annual consumption, average customer monthly cost. That includes that's the question, is what's included in that cost?
That is just the average usage times the 19 cents.
Okay, so you're just basically using 19 cents as sort of an average all in.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, then let me, but this is, again, this is just residential, so assuming that we apply this to commercial customers as well, the revenue would be higher.
Mhm.
Quite a bit higher. So suppose we start with imagine 4%. It's highlighted here what the revenue at 4% would be, just over $500,000. You could imagine that it was more like $1 million if we include commercial and municipal, which we might not, but so let me ask my board members, how do we feel about the same percentage that Wellesley chose, which was 4%? Is it too high? Is it too low?
I like 4%, at least in before we've seen the new rate design.
If 4% has worked well for Wellesley and they're happy with that, I would say that that's a good baseline data set to base 4% for HMLP.
Yeah,
So,
optically, I like something less than 5. If the reason why when I might like something a little bit less might be if for some reason the new rates came up drastically higher.
well, we're pretty sure they're going to come up higher, so it's kind of a question of what looks drastic. So how about if we say, let us choose for the moment that we're going to go with 4%, and then we will evaluate in the context of the rate study when we get that back. But we're going to project that this would be at 4%. Does that make sense?
When do we anticipate the rate study being completed?
Right now, they're thinking it's going to be sometime around the end of January.
Okay.
That's pretty soon.
Yeah.
My only thought on the percentages was when I did this, so Tom and I did note that the consumption may be higher than what the average bill actually is, because typically, 500 is used as a baseline, or
It used to be 500. I think they've moved to 700 now. So
700. So I
Yeah.
wonder if that was the baseline. I was surprised because Wellesley had said that their average customer would be seeing about a $5 increase in their bills. And if we wanted to have something closer to that, that would be 3%, versus the 4% was putting it at $6.50. It's not a huge difference, but it was just a small thing. They did a lot of advertising on the $5, that's how much it costs to go green and things like that. So I just wanted to mention that for the board to consider. If rates do go up and it impacts it more, maybe 3% would fit better, but at the same time it makes a big difference in the total revenues generated, and I don't know what we need to generate as a baseline for the program. So
Well,
if
and
you
of
look
course-
at where inflation is now too, that $5 might be $6.50 now.
yeah, that's true.
And of course, if rates go up, then a given percentage will yield more than it would have before the rates went up. So that's something to consider. If you plug in, this was done at 17 cents, did you say, Tom?
19.
19 cents, right? So that seems about right now, but if rates went up to 21%, then the revenue would go up.
And
So, you know, if you wanted to say, well, we'll keep it under, you know, once again, we could say, keep it under 3%. It'll, you know, if we do 3%, it's under $5, but those numbers might be completely different, as Tyler points out, after we look at the rate study. So let's just put a pin in this, say we are considering the value of staying under an average impact of $5, as well as using 4%, and we'll consider both of those things when we get to the end of the rate study. Does that make sense, Mike?
Yeah, I'm on board.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So then moving back to the questions, what percentage, should customers be able to choose a percentage? It's an interesting question.
I think this, you know, giving people an option is gonna make the billing even more complicated
Yeah,
internally.
and it's complicated enough as it is. Any other thoughts on that? That's enough of an argument for me.
I'd say no.
Yeah,
People can give in other ways.
Okay, so-
We could provide a link for additional donations if people would want to do that.
the town does that with tax bills, and since they've gone largely to electronic billing, the amount of money contributed to the town's various charitable funds has plummeted. Used to be when people would write checks and it was a piece of paper, you know, they would check it off and they would add it up and send it in, but it doesn't happen much online. But sure, we could do that. No reason to say no. Okay, the next question is, should the funds be allocated in a certain way? So I think then a direct benefit is translate, you know, so if 4% goes to rate stabilization fund and 2% to the opt-out fund. By rate stabilization fund, what are we referring to here? The depreciation fund?
Brad, if that's beyond, I'm not sure on this one.
I was
Maybe-
going to say, I am not sure either. It
Okay.
the rate stabilization fund came up in our conversations internally here. And I don't know anything about the rate stabilization.
Yeah, I think
Well,
that's the depreciation fund.
Yeah, so that, I think, no, the rate stabilization fund is different. That's
Oh,
than the depreciation fund. So, you know, I think at this point, we have money in the rate stabilization fund and we're not contributing to that fund right now.
oh, that one. Yeah,
But I think maybe the thought behind this was, you know, should some of this money be going to the depreciation fund? But again, we're at 5% on the depreciation fund now, and we have to go to the state for that. So I don't know if that we would want to do anything as far as
mhm.
rate stabilization fund or anything. I think it would be better off using the 4% for projects that the board deems appropriate. And I think that's what Wellesley does, is the board votes on whatever project they're gonna do.
This is a new fund. I think it should be kept separate from other line entries in the ledger, so to speak.
The only
Yep.
thing I
moment it
guess
is.
along these lines is if you wanted a certain percentage to go to funding rebates and a certain percentage to go to projects,
Mhm. that's definitely a conversation we would have to have. Regardless. I'm not sure now is the time to have it, though.
Mhm.
So I personally would not favor having the funds for this go to the depreciation fund, because that would considerably muddy what we have to tell people when we're telling them where the money's going or what it's for.
I agree.
So I don't know if anybody has any other thoughts on that.
Yeah, I agree there, definitely.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, well, I want to flag that we are less than 5 minutes away from 1 hour on this meeting. We're obviously, I don't think we might want to postpone the rest of the questions to our next meeting, which is on the second Tuesday, so it's not too far away. Unless people want to have another special meeting to iron them out. I don't know what people feel about that, what's preferable.
Does anyone have to leave right now, or could we go for another half an hour maybe?
Tyler?
I definitely have 15 minutes. I need to check on a half hour.
And what I can do too, if it's easy, I mean, I know these things are easier when the board discusses them together, but if you want to send me comments, I can, try to include all the feedback into the questions or something like that, or I don't know.
Well, we can't actually discuss these questions except together. According to the open meeting law, if you went and tried to put them all together and sent them all out to us, that would not
Yes.
be legal.
I realized as I was saying it that it
Yeah.
didn't make sense.
Yeah. I think that we'll use the time we have now and then find more time to answer the rest of the questions. So let's assume we'll go for 15 minutes. But we do have one other item on the agenda. Since we have more questions than we can do, perhaps we could pause for a moment, take up that item, and
Mhm.
then return if we have more time after that.
Good idea.
Okay. Tyler and Mike, were you able to read the proposed changes to the MEAG bylaws that were put together by?
Yep.
I'm gonna have to ask these guys to stop. I'm sorry. Is it noisy? Can you hear the?
No, we
Not
can't.
too
Can't?
bad.
No,
Oh, if you can't, then I don't mind. There's a lot of noise going on out here, but if you can't hear it, then no problem.
the
So
filtering
there-
on these video meetings is pretty amazing.
That's awesome because they've been sawing, they've been hammering, they're pulling out nails right now. So the issue here is the Massachusetts, the Municipal Electric Association of Massachusetts, which is the trade organization for MLPs, and they're redoing their bylaws. And I and a group of other light commissioners that I meet with on a monthly basis just to talk about light commissioner issues felt that it would be possible to make some changes to the bylaws that would encourage more participation from commissioners. And in particular, we're concerned about when MEAG takes positions on legislation, that looks to us like policy, which is really the job of the light boards. The light boards are policy boards. And some light boards are uncomfortable with having their managers speak for them on those questions without checking with the light boards. But by and large, light boards are not well informed about MEAG, what it is, etc. So I just want to ask if you have any feedback on the proposal that we made, and I would love it if you were comfortable with it, if we could vote as a board to recommend it to the MEAG Executive Committee, or if as individuals you wanted to sign the letter, or not. Tell me what you think.
I'm supportive. I think it's a good idea. I think it's spreading the word and getting the discussion going, and I'm in favor of it.
I'm supportive of the
Okay.
changes as well. I'm happy to ratify those as a board, or either way is fine.
Okay, let's ask Tom, what do you think? Because you're the one who actually participates in MEAG, really,
So,
as of now.
yeah, so I mean, I haven't participated much, again, I think I've only been to a couple of meetings, the last one being with you, Laura. And I mean, it's, you know, that from what I've seen of meme, it's pretty much, it's general managers, they get together, they talk about a, you know, a host of things. I don't know if the legislative stuff is new to me or not. That, you know, again, I haven't been around long enough to, I know
It's
they
not.
voted. Yeah, okay. So, and again, I understand that that's the board's decisions on, you know, that's policy things. So, you know, for me, again, I go to those meetings, but I haven't been to many of them, and I, you know, so I really don't have an opinion on how constructive they are. Or for me, it's more getting to know, you know, my peers in those positions, and getting to know who to go to when you need help and things like that. So
It's certainly a great forum for that, I think.
Yep.
Is there any more discussion on this? Okay, in that case, I would entertain a motion to endorse the letter to the meme executive committee and the changes as recommended.
So
Okay, is there a second?
moved.
Okay. All in favor, Tyler?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Laura? Aye. Okay, great. Thanks very much. I will add the name of our board to the letter when it's being submitted to the board by Jen Calais, who is the light commissioner in Wakefield. She's been doing it. As it happens, her general manager is the president of meme, so that's very convenient to communicate with the executive board. So thanks very much. I appreciate your support for this. And again, really just the idea is just to try to change the structure slightly to make it a little bit easier for commissioners to have. And I don't feel like any of it is huge, but we'll find out whether other people think that or not. So thanks very much. Okay, so we're now at, so if Tyler has another 15 minutes, we can go back to the questions where we were. We had discussed, should customers be able to choose a certain percentage? Should the funds be allocated in a certain way? And I just want to flag or put a pin in the fact that that is a discussion we will have to have about. I mean, so far, the two things that we've identified to spend it on is supporting the rebate program or supporting the development of distributed energy resources in town. And it might be good to have a fairly lengthy conversation about that, but I'm not sure we need to have that now, unless other people. I mean, I don't feel like we need to decide that precisely before going ahead. Wellesley didn't even have, I don't think, any idea about what they were going to spend it on when they created the rate. Is it okay if we kind of table that to a later date? Do you think, Brianna?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay.
I'm good
Okay.
with that.
Is the money from the opt-out rate going to be distributed away from programs that double dip with state and federal incentives? I'm not sure what we're referring to here. Maybe you could expand on that a little bit, Brianna.
Trying to think back. So there are state and federal funding programs offered for electric vehicles, say, and for now for heat pumps and things. Specifically thinking about the IRA. And the question has just come up of whether that's almost double dipping to provide incentives on top of those other incentives that are available. So that's why that's included on here. Just because this program would be related to incentive funding. And there, the question is, should our incentives be, almost the same thing that's being offered on other levels, or should we be focusing on other things that people can't get funding for?
Any thoughts, Mike or Tyler?
I mean, if someone's looking for heat pumps, then the federal incentives in the IRA plus any tax incentives plus any rebates from Mass Save or HMLP all go into the financial equation.
Yeah, I'm happy for that to be the case too.
I'm also happy for that to be the case. I don't see it as double dipping per se. I see it as, I mean, especially when it comes to things like weatherization and heat pumps, the amount of the price of those improvements is so large in so many cases. It's really just a question of, well, we as the light plant can't provide enough to really help people get over the heat hump. But if you can, if you can get your tax credit and you can get other ways of support, maybe when you get it all together, that will help you get there. But I don't see any case where us giving an incentive is going to mean that when you add it all up with the other incentives, that somebody's going to make money on any of these changes. They're just too expensive, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I look at it. Okay. Will double dipping programs be reviewed and reduced? I think we just answered that question, right? I think. Okay. Which customers exactly should and should not be on the rate? Okay, here we get to this question. And Wellesley's answer was residential, commercial, yes, primary, no, and municipal. I don't know what they did with municipal. Do you know?
Yeah, the municipal's not on.
Not on.
No.
Well, that could be seen as an acknowledgement to our owners that they are the owners of the light plant.
I believe that Wellesley, they've been discussing revising their program. I don't know what the revisions are going to end up being. I think they might be looking at adding municipal customers to that. Or did they mention in conversations to us, Tom, that they would wish they had gone forward with municipal from the get-go? Or I don't know if that was the customer they had been referring to, but they had said there were a few things that they would have done differently. If I'm recalling correctly, I think adding municipal from the beginning was one of those things. But that's, it's they didn't start out with it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that, if that was their thinking, but I just know that municipal is not a part of it at this point right now, but.
Well, there's an argument to be made that they should as well. After all, it's the town that has set, I mean, we also have set a goal, but the town has set very broad goals that go way beyond just green issues around electricity, but helping us put aside some funds to address the challenges that we're presented with in making our contribution to the climate goals of the town. This is a way for them to do that.
And so it's my opinion that if since it's an opt-out rate, we allow municipal customers or any customers to be on the rate, but then maybe we specifically talk to entities that we think are going to have trouble participating and just really check with them directly, like a phone call, to make sure that they know it's coming and that they're okay being on it. So like, I don't know if we would want to call the town hall and let them know and ask them, are you going to be prepared to participate in this? We want the town to fund this program just like all of our customers, and just see what they say.
It will hit the schools as well. Obviously, they're going to be the largest municipal user. Yeah, maybe we should talk with them about it. We're in the process of setting up a meeting with the school department about the municipal solar program, and I could potentially raise it there and see what they say. And we should probably talk to the town administrator as well. Does that cover all the so-called municipal customers? I'm trying to think who else. If there are any municipal entities that pay their electric bill directly as opposed to having it paid by the town or the schools. I can't think who that would be. I think those might be the only two phone calls, but we could ask. Do people
Does the
think that's a
water
good
department-
idea?
Will the
I'm
water
sorry.
department pay separate?
I
I'm not
doubt
sure.
it.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know. That's a
I mean, the
good
town
piece. That's-
pays all the bills anyway,
Town
right?
pays all the bills in the end, yeah. Although you're right that the electric bills of the water company will be paid out of water rates. And that would definitely change. I mean, it will change, you know, the country club too. Country club is also an enterprise fund like the water company.
Mhm.
So they're supposed to, you know, balance their own budget. Ultimately, the town pays it in the sense that the town owns the country club, but they have to pay for their electric fees out of their earnings.
Yeah.
So as does the water company. So you're right, I guess it's the enterprise funds that, and then also sewer then, another enterprise fund. So those would be individual municipal customers that would be affected by this. So yeah, I think maybe a conversation with the town administrator is in order, as well as the superintendent of schools.
Anyone who's setting a budget,
Yeah,
doesn't blindside them. It gives them an indication that it's going to be 4% of what they're charged on a
of
kilowatt hour
course,
basis,
they could
including
opt out.
they could, but they would have to go through the democratic process of going through the school board or
Yeah.
the select board in
Yeah.
the case of the town. And I think that would be a very
Yeah.
bad.
Although I think actually the enterprise
Correct.
funds would be able to do that on their own, like the water company, country club, sewer commission. I think they would be able to opt out on their own, probably. Maybe not
Yeah,
the
that-
sewer commission, because I don't know. Seems complicated, so.
I would
It
think
would
that
be-
would be an operational issue that would be whoever manages, you know, the water would make that decision type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the select board are the water commissioners. So they're
Yeah.
the ones who would decide on
Mhm.
behalf of the water company, but it would be different from, it's a different budget from the town is the point, I guess. So I don't know. Brianna, are you up for having these two phone calls, or would you like back up on that, or
The
you want
support,
Tom to help, or how should we go about that?
I would definitely need support with it. I actually have not had the chance to talk with or meet the town manager yet.
Mhm.
Since I started working
Yeah,
at HMO.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'd be happy to have that conversation. with him.
okay, great. Okay, he's a town administrator, which is different.
Administrator.
Yeah, town administrator is his title. Okay, so Tom will at least have those two conversations, and you could, Tom, you could explore with Tom Mayo about the enterprise funds, or who else gets their own electric bill that this would impact, and see what other implications there are. And maybe let us know when you find out. And I think we concluded that renters should be on this rate. And do we have that right?
Yeah.
I think so. Or
Yeah.
we should put them on until they opt out. And so that brings us to primary customers. And how many of those do we have?
There aren't that many of them. I think there's, you know, Linden Ponds, Russ Electric, Blue Cross Blue Shield. Not sure about Whole Foods. But
So
there
they're
are-
not, yeah, they're not many, but they're large.
Yeah,
What if we maybe chose a different rate for primary customers, like 2% instead of 4%? I don't know. What do people think? Any thoughts?
Do we know what Wellesley does with primary customers?
they don't include the
They don't
I
include
think
them.
it's, I
I
think
know
it's,
they excluded the colleges because they
Yeah.
had some green initiatives, right?
I think they do it on a case by case basis on what, based on what they're doing outside of, on their own for,
Okay.
Yeah, for energy.
I could
Yeah.
imagine that Blue Cross Blue Shield might be taking some action. I'm pretty certain, I don't know what Linden Ponds is doing. Should we, I mean, we can put them on and they can opt out.
yeah,
Mhm.
yep.
If they opt out, we could say, let's make a deal. How, wouldn't you like the publicity of contributing, even if it's only 2%? We could negotiate.
Case by case
suppose.
basis.
Yeah,
I mean, I think if it's gonna be a case by case basis, then they should just be included, and then we talk with them on a individual basis and ask them if they'd like to opt out, and have them just fill out the form or whatever they need to do. Versus, like, they don't need light board approval to opt out because it's a voluntary program, so they would just need to have the option to be a part of it in the first place.
but we should definitely let them know before the bill comes. So
Yes.
those are conversations that we'll need
Yeah,
to
I
have.
think, what Wellesley did well in advance of implementing these rates, they advertised it and they actually, they knew exactly who was going to be on the rate, before they implemented the rate.
Mhm. Yeah, we kind of do, I need to know that, yeah. So, do you mean that they knew who was going to be opting out up front before they started the rate?
Yeah, they they went to and, advertised it. So they had a list of people who were going to opt out.
Mhm. Before they
Before
got going.
Yep.
I
Yep.
see, that is a good idea. Which brings us to the next question: should opt-out customers be credited on their bills? And if so, is there a cutoff date for the credits? Yeah, I think that, I mean, my feeling is that if they haven't opted out in 3 months, then they can opt out at 3 months, but I wouldn't give more than 3 months of credit. I mean, I would say we start it and then people have kind of a 3 months to get used to this idea.
Yeah.
And
So
if before the end of 3 months, they opt out, we could refund them back to the beginning of the program, but then it's
Wellesley
just
had
as of the day
some,
you opt out.
Wellesley had some that, customers that, were greater than 6 months. And, their claim was, well, we didn't even know about it. We were on it. We were on watching. We didn't, weren't paying attention. And, we didn't want to be on it. And it was more than 6 months, but there weren't a huge number of customers, but there were some, and they did, they did end up giving them their money back. But again, I don't think they had anything in their policy that said,
Well, we could make, here's a suggestion, that we make a policy for that if people opt out in the first 3 months, we'll refund them back to the beginning. And then that stops, but of course, we always have the ability to make an individual arrangement if someone is really, someone comes and says, I've been in the hospital for the last 4 or 5 months and, I have reasons not to be paying attention. We always have the ability to, we do a lot of that kind of thing, I think, Tom, don't we?
we do.
Just taking account of people's individual circumstances.
I like that.
So we can continue to do that.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I have to drop out here to another
Ye-
meeting in a few minutes.
Yep, so we're at
Everyone.
4:15. How about we take the implementation questions and put them on the next agenda? And thank you very much for your time. Anything else we need to discuss for this meeting? I think we did pretty well with the hour that we had. Thank you. Okay, great. Thanks very much and have a great
Thank you.
holiday, everybody.
I wanna
Great
take-
holiday.
Happy
Enjoy.
I
holidays.
take a
Thank you.
motion to adjourn.
Oh, that, yes. Tyler, would you second that?
I second. Yep.
Okay, all those in favor, Mike,
Aye.
Tyler,
Aye.
Laura, aye. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you,
Stay
everyone.
warm, everyone.
you.
Take care.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thank
Yep.
you. Happy holidays.
Happy
Bye.
holidays.